Hey guys, Chairman here. Like many of you, my reaction first to the Kaguya ban list was, oh god, I'm never going to be able to play Kaguya again. And definitely was very disappointed with what cards got hit. I think it got hit way more than it needed to. Probably either the Chica or the K would have been fine, but you know, they decided to just make the deck not nearly as strong as it was. Yeah, it was really hard to take that kind of news, but you know, it's been a while and we've had some time to kind of digest what Kaguya is going to look like with the new ban list, and I've actually taken the time to go back and see if there's any other Kaguya builds that we could play. And to my surprise, there was actually one build that looks almost identical to the build that is pre-ban list, and I'm talking about the level 1 counter version of the standby Kaguya build, and this was developed by some of the weiss community in Australia, so I'll give them a huge shout out. Probably link them somewhere here. They came up with this build. I playtested the build with them at the time that they came up with it. I thought it was actually a wonderful idea, and I think this is probably the way to play Kaguya going forward. It's actually surprisingly strong. I was actually shocked at how strong this build felt in playtesting. So let's just go through the deck profile of the kind of Kaguya build that you might expect to see going forward. It's definitely the strongest Kaguya build that I think you can play post-ban list. So we're starting off with 4 of the level 0 Kaguya runners. We definitely need runners to get our advantage at level 0, and if we're not running K runners, we're running Kaguya runners. And my original Kaguya build, I did have this runner at 2. Now that we don't have K runners, we just bump it up to 4. It's an excellent card. Honestly, very overshadowed by the K, and now that K is out of the picture, it's come full front. We're definitely relying on this card a lot to get us our plus and just to control level 0. And alongside that, we are running 4 copies of the Chica coin flip. So this card she's very small. She doesn't really contest board that much, but she is able to bounce back to our hand at the start of our opponent's draw step. We reveal level 1 at the top of our deck, and also she bonds to the 1-0 event counter, which is a very integral part of this deck. I just run 4 copies because I want to see her. She's a good going first play, good turn 1 play. Sometimes she'll miss, which is unfortunate, but again, we're not really relying too heavily on her for our plus. As between her and Kaguya, we just have 8 solid turn 1 plays that potentially can plus us 1, which is basically all that we could really ask for in a world of no more clean cut, no more Riki. We are maxing out on 4 copies of the highest cycle drop search. This is going to be our ban list choice. We're not running the Chicas, not running the Ks. We're going to run the drop search, because this drop search is the main reason you can even play Kaguya, like 3-2 Kaguya. You can play standby. She's just excellent. The power pump is phenomenal. Being able to drop search for anything you want is really good. I think recently I've come to really appreciate the power of drop search. It's just such a strong ability, and Hayasaka is just a strong card. So definitely maxing her out makes her very consistent. It feels really good to have that consistency. Considering if it's like too much consistency, you could drop her down to 3 or drop the Chica down to 3. And if I were to do that, I would actually bump the next card up to 3. We're currently only running 2. 2 feels fine for now, but it could, we could use a little bit more sometimes, I think, maybe. So we could bump this up to 3. But this card is basically the reason why this deck works, actually. This Kaguya is very good. So her on-play effect is pay 1, and you can swap the a card in your level with a card in your hand. It doesn't choose only characters. It could work with climaxes or events, which is an important part of how this deck works. Your second effect is you can pay 1, send her to the waiting room, look at the next 4 cards of your deck, and you can add a character. So she's got 2 good filter effects. Neither of them plus, but they both help us dig through more cards in our deck or get specific cards from our level. And with the entire level package, this card is instrumental in getting exactly what we want from our waiting room. So it's actually a really, really good card. And lastly, we're running 2 copies of Ishigami. So I think Ishigami with the Kaguya runner is a really strong opening. You get to pump the Kaguya runner to 3k, and on your opponent's turn, you can run that, have that kill another unit. The Ishigami runs away, so you get full control of your front row board, and it's really good. I used to have the Ishigami at 3 copies, bumped it down to 2, just so we could run other copies of the other cards and have some more consistency. Also, not too many zeros for the coin flip. And then of course we're running one copy of the twin drive and stock swap, as well as one copy of the Climax swap top deck 2. Now it's just pretty staple Kaguya cards that everybody plays basically in their deck. 4 copies of the Climax combo. It's pretty standard. We're still running this. It's actually better in this build than in the other build because we can give it more power. 3 copies of the 1-0 Shirogane. This card is actually really good. So whenever you trigger a Climax and he's on the board, you can assign 2k power to one of your characters, can even target himself. And so it just really helps us offensively. When we trigger Climaxes, we can also pump power. It's good for getting our on reverse effects off. And the most important effect of this card is whenever a card is put into your level zone, you can pay 1 and then look at the next 4 cards of your deck, up to the next 4 cards of your deck, choose a character added to your hand. So this is our main way of getting advantage after level 0. Actually makes it so that we don't have to be so dependent on getting advantage at level 0 because we can activate this after level 0. And it's kind of like the 1-1 resonance card we had in the old build, except we can do this on our opponent's turn as well, which is how this deck just kind of explodes in advantage, because we can do this on our opponent's turn with the 1-0 event counter. We're running 2 copies of the 1-1 level support Chica. She also has the second effect. You can tap 2 characters and then level swap. So put a card from your waiting room into your level, and then a card from your level into your waiting room. It's pretty instrumental in being able to trigger the Shirogane on our turn, as well as, you know, getting rid of the Climaxes that go into our level zone, and also choosing specific cards from our waiting room to put into our level zone so that we could use something like the 0-0 Kaguya to fish out of the level zone, which is like really powerful. And she can also put Climaxes there, which is like really good too as well. Definitely good. And then she's our main standby target at level 1. So it's kind of like the 1-1 Kaguya that we used to play, that like when we played the standby at level 1, we standby that Kaguya out. Now we usually standby this Chica out. And 3 copies of the 1-0 Oni training event. This event is the 3-5 counter, but in order to play it, if you have a Climax in your waiting room, you must swap it with a card in your level. So it's not really good to play right before a refresh because then the Climax stays out of refresh, but early on into a deck cycle, it's not really a downside because you just swap the Climax back out. No problem whatsoever. The other thing is that you do need green to play it because it is an event. It's not just like a counter you can discard. So make sure you have red and green so you can play this card. Sometimes you can also play this card on your own turn because it just gives power till the end of turn. So sometimes I do actually use this to put a Climax into my Climax zone, then use the Kaguya to grab that Climax so I can play it. That's also a really cool, way to use the effect, and it triggers the Shirogane. So once you use this event, a card is put into your level zone, then you can use the Shirogane effect, pay 1, look at the next 4 cards of your deck. It's really good. This counter also counters this Kaguya up to really high numbers. So behind a level support, the Kaguya will be 5-5. When you use the counter, it will go up to 9k power, which is way more than the old Kaguya deck could hit, which means that sometimes when you use the Kaguya combo, you actually don't want to sack the marker immediately. You can wait to your opponent's turn, use the counter, and then search on your opponent's turn. That becomes a much more viable line of play in this deck, as opposed to the older version of, or the K Chica version of this build. You really don't get to do that because your Kaguyas are small. You're never going to counter over them. Alright. We're playing 3 copies of the Ishigami. No Chica. I know some people like to play the Chica. I don't like to play the Chica, and in this deck we don't have enough yellow, so the Chica is not a good idea. And, 1 refresh counter as per usual for Kaguya decks. At level 3, I think the lineup is pretty standard. 2 Shirogane, 2 K. It's a lot easier to play them because we're only on green and red. We have a lot more green cards as opposed to before we only had 4 Ks. 4 copies of the 3-2 Kaguya. We're not running any of the TD Kaguya in this version of the build because our board is actually way more stickier with the counter, and it's actually easier to keep the level 1 Kaguyas on the board and defend the 3-2 Ks, defend the 3-2 Shiroganes, and even defend the 3-2 Kaguyas that gets standby out. Usually with the old build, the idea of the 3-2 Kaguya is if we stand by a Kaguya out, it's going to get killed, and so there's no point in standbying this 3-2 Kaguya out until we've stood by the TD Kaguya, and then once we stand by this out in front of the level support, it's actually really big. But in this deck, we can just stand by this out into front row, in front of the level support, it's going to be 11k power, and then with the counter, it's going to be 14.5. And it's going to be really hard for your opponent to deal with a 14.5 Kaguya, so it actually ends up staying alive. So we don't need a TD Kaguya. And we're going to run an interesting Climax spread. We are actually on 5 standby, so 4 of the combo, 1 empty standby, and 3 of the Kaguya gate. Now the reason why we're on this, so actually I've been testing 5-3 for a while actually. I actually like 5-3 a lot, even in the old build, because I would run the 3-2 TT Kaguya, and having the extra standby just made it slightly more likely that you actually get the TT Kaguya out, and I thought the TT Kaguya was a really strong card to play around at the time. And this build, the reason why we can go down to 3 gate, or even 2, actually you could actually go down to 2, is because it's super easy to get the gate Climax with the level swap and the 0-0 Kaguya. So you level swap the Climax from your waiting room into your level zone, then use the Kaguya to get the Climax out just for 1 stock. So it's actually really, really consistent, really easy to get the gate Climax. So we can actually go down lower on this count because we can see it easier in the late game, and we can go up on standby. And the reason why I want to go up on standby in this deck is because I actually want to trigger or play a standby at level 0 to standby out a 1-0 Shirogane into the back row at level 0. If you can do that, you actually get the top check 4 effect at like when you level up from 0 to 1, and that's just like a free plus, and it kind of makes up for the fact that you don't have like a Riki in this deck. So yeah, just having an extra standby, getting the Shirogane out at level 0 is really, really powerful and can really start snowballing the advantage in your favor with this deck. So yeah, I think this deck plays really, really well. Plays much more for board, much more counter. You get a lot more control of your deck because you get to look at 4 cards instead of 3, and you can do it on your opponent's turn. Colors are actually a lot easier with this deck, so there's a lot of reasons to actually play this build as opposed to playing K and Chica, even if given the option. Like I said, the only 2 cards that I kind of adapted this from the Australian build of this version of the deck, and the only 2 cards that they ran that are on the ban list now were 2 copies of the Chica Riki. They were actually running 0 copies of the K, and I agree with them. I think in this deck you don't have room for the K. Anyways, if you guys are like me, sad that the ban list hit Kaguya super hard, but you still want to play this set, this is my solution for you. It is the post-banlist Kaguya deck, still really strong, still taking advantage of the good things about Kaguya, the 3-2 Shirogane, 3-2 Kaguya combo, the really good Kayasaka drop search, the whole package. So yeah, give this deck a try. Let me know how you think, how it works, and what you think about this deck. Hopefully, allows us to keep Kaguya, represented in JP Weiss. And I'll see you guys next time.